What's up, everybody? Renfail here. I am now in the sort of aftermath glow of the panel from hell. I've pushed out a couple of videos already, but I wanted to sit down and sort of do a more in-depth deep dive. Obviously, I went through the live stream with everybody. I've pushed out the live stream recap, a character creation video, but this is one I want to actually take the time to talk more in depth with everybody about some of the things that I think are the most exciting, some of the takeaways that I have from the showcase, because there was a lot of stuff I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the live stream, so I ended up deciding not to pause it while we were watching it and just react to things as we go along. Whereas this is me kind of chopping things up and really focusing in and honing in on the things that I found most interesting about this showcase, because obviously we knew some of it coming from the community update number 20 that they posted a few days prior to the live stream, but then actually doing the showcase reveal of all these cool features and things we'd never seen before, to prepare us for launch, which is just down the pipeline in like a month, a little less than a month. It was pretty cool, and I got to say, for the first time in a very long time, I have felt very much justified in my early access purchase and think that everything they're doing is really cool. That being said, there's some stuff that I think was really awesome about this showcase, and that's what we're going to dive into today. Now, if this is your first time watching one of my sessions, awesome. Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And of course, check out all the class guides and live streams. We have a Discord channel, links are down below. And we play a lot of other games. We're, right now doing Diablo 4. We're prepping for Starfield, which we're going to play as much as Baldur's Gate 3 once it relaunches. I play Star Wars: Old Republic, Lord of the Rings Online, all sorts of other stuff from my first impression series. We watch TV shows, Star Trek, Star Wars, Witcher, everything you name it. Films, books, and reviews, all sorts of other stuff on the channel. Check out the playlists. Let's dive in to this, however. So right off the bat, we got the introduction of the brand new character creation system, and they revealed a bunch of new features and a reconfiguration of all the UI. So we've got a different layout now, new icons, and everything else. But we also got to see the Dragonborn in action. We got to see the size variation changes, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, again, if you want to see the footage of all of this, I would urge you to go watch the live stream. I'm way too tired to actually worry about splicing together the footage, so I'm really just going to the part of the video I want to talk about and pausing it here. But the character creation process was always fun in early access, and they've just enhanced it since then. They had, I have it written down in my notebook, I believe it was 48. I'm skipping to the page where it says, yeah, 48 classes, if you consider all of the permutations of subclasses that are included in this game. Multiclassing was confirmed today, and I know that's a huge deal for a lot of people knowing that they're going to be able to multiclass their characters. But what was really interesting to me, they mentioned the Gloomhaven Ranger, I think. Um, they mentioned how certain subclasses, you're going to have to work to get them. They're not available at character creation. You got to actually level up your character to unlock those things. But the wording Sven used was all 48 classes. Now, I'm not intimately familiar with the player's handbook, but that sounds like a lot. I would assume that's close to all of them. I don't know exactly. Um, but there's a lot of classes and subclasses already to choose from at the character creation in early access, and now they've expanded upon that. So it's pretty cool to see. We're getting more things like the Dwergar, which we did not see in today's showcase, but that's okay. We did get to see the Dragonborn, which was really awesome. I could skip ahead really quick if I could find it. This whole section that they did on like the coloring of the skin, and I may have to skip forward to find it here. They show off the heads. This might be the
A
part
bunch
right
of
here.
very exciting options for you guys.
I'm going to turn her off. There we go. So they show all the skin permutations that you can do and all the highlights and everything else, which you can do with the hair for the normal characters, but for the Dragonborn, you're going to be able to do it to their entire skin. And there's like some translucency going on too, which I gotta say, I hadn't originally, and I still won't for my playthrough, for my first playthrough, but I'm genuinely interested in a Dragonborn character now. Not at launch, but maybe one of the playthroughs I do later on down the road playing a Dragonborn sounds really cool because they've got some really cool visuals to them. But they just went over all of these new options in early access, from these different permutations of the Dragonborn to things like, you can do earrings now, you can change the size of the characters so you can have bulky, small, so on and so forth. Now, I know some people had already left comments on my character creation video, but well, I think they need to go a step further, and I need to see sliders for everything. And it's like, I think you guys need to give credit where credit is due. The hair options are already amazing. The body options are amazing. This kind of stuff, skin tone. There's a lot of man hours that have gone into making this kind of stuff, and there are limitations to what a team has the budget to do, and especially if you're wanting the game to release, in a reasonable amount of time. In this case, 6 years. If you keep letting them do feature creep, you turn into Star Citizen and you're 20 years into development before the game finally launches. In this case, they've put their, kind of drawn a line in the sand and says, this is how we're doing our version of character creation. And in terms of sizes, you just get to choose between like the skinny, normal, and big, bulky. You're not going to be able to make, as far as I'm aware, an obese character or make the arms thicker or anything like that because there's just not the sliders that some people are wanting. I know some people want sliders for every little thing. From my game development experience, it is way easier to do what they're doing here, which, by the way, is the same system that Star Wars The Republic uses and has used for years, where you have a sort of petite, normal, and large character builds to choose from. And that gives you a fairly vast array of diverse choices for the various different types of races that you can play without needing to worry about creating something that is going to cause the technical difficulties that designing a slider based system causes, because there's a tons of nightmares that can happen when it comes to armor and how that sits on the body, and everybody having different permutations of chest size and arm length and breast size and buttocks and all these other things that can wreak havoc. For those of you who don't remember, like, even a good example of this is looking at like the well, I don't need to get into that. It's just not a good idea to do sliders if you can avoid it. So I'm happy with the fact that they don't have sliders. Personally, I think we have more than enough options to give us an extremely robust character creation system that's going to allow, I would say, most of us, like 99% of us, are going to be able to create the characters that we want to create within the limitations of the system that they've designed. And that's the most important thing, is to understand game development and understand that a team can't do everything. There has to be some limits in place in order to make sure that the product ships within a reasonable amount of time and doesn't allow feature creep to get in the way of actual production. So that's pretty cool stuff. On my notes here, they talked a lot about the races and the sub races, talked about the classes and the subclasses. Backgrounds was something that they really focused on this time. Um, where they were discussing all of the various conversation things that can happen because of your backgrounds. And I don't remember if they actually showed any specific of that. I'm skipping ahead through here. However, before we get to that, there's one thing I wanted to show, which is right here. So you're going to notice now, actually, that's a pretty good screenshot as well. We now have access to the entirety of the origin characters. Now, these are all of the origin characters that the game is launching with. Astarion, Lae'zel, Gale, Shadowheart, Will, Karlach, and the Dark Urge. Now, we know from previous incarnations of the game what all the other ones are, and they showcased the Dark Urge today. So you remember nothing of your past besides that you walked a path paved with blood. As you venture on, you find yourself inescapably drawn towards imaginable cruelties. Where do these thoughts come from? Now, some people have suggested that this might be a throwback to the Child of Baal, which is an interesting thought. But the big thing is that they introduced finally the final two origin characters, which are Karlach and the Dark Urge. And if you've never played a Divinity Original Sin game before, those games were known for not only allowing you to create a custom character like we've been doing for the last 3 years in early access, but you can also start the game as one of these origin characters, and that completely changes how you play the game, because now you're getting unique backgrounds related to all these characters, and you get all the baggage that comes with that. So in the showcase, they showed off Astarion meeting his vampire creator as an example. And they talk about him, having dreams and things which are going to refer back to his past, which are unique to his background. It's unique to his origin story, and he will have unique abilities because he's a vampire who can go bite other players. You get everything that you would get when he is a NPC in your party, except you're controlling him. So you get all of that plus the extra stuff, and that goes for all of the characters here. If you're playing as one of the origin characters, you're going to get that character's background. That is a huge, huge, huge. I don't think people understand how huge of a thing that is because they've given us 7 different characters that we could choose to play on top of being able to create a custom character out of the how many races and sub races and 48 classes that are in the game. Like if you decide that you don't want to do any of those, you'll be able to choose from these, which is really cool for the people who just like to jump in and do something out of the gate. It's also good from a content creator's perspective because that means I get to go through each one of these origin stories and play this introduction for each one of them and record that as its own video, which is amazing from a content creator standpoint because it's the less work that I have to do planning content out is great. So thank you very much, Larian Studios, for putting all of this in. But this system is hugely rewarding if you've never played through it before. If you've ever played the old Icewind Dale games, which came after Baldur's Gate, you created your party from scratch, and one of the things that I know, like in the enhanced edition later on, they gave you the ability, and you could even do it in the original version of like Icewind Dale 2. You can choose a party of adventurers who have like a backstory and a predefined classes and races, and that's essentially what this is. If you wanted to have a party of characters who are made up just out of already predefined characters, so you don't even have to create something of your own if you don't want to. But of course, most of us are probably going to be playing custom characters on our run through the first time and then coming back and doing the origin characters later on. But this is also important if you're looking at the announcements that they made about being able to have hirelings in your group, and also the multiplayer component. So we can talk a little bit about the confirmation of hirelings because that was something that people had been wondering about. They didn't say how you're going to be able to get your hirelings, but they did say you'll be able to hire people to come into your party. So if you don't like any of these NPCs and you don't want them to come with you, you will be able to have a party of your own creation to go through Baldur's Gate 3 with. However, the trade-off to that is that you will lose access to all of the unique abilities, conversations, stories, and interactions that these characters bring to the table by being in your party. So while yes, you can create a custom party of your own to go adventure in this game, you do miss out on all of those. I would assume they're going to be hired at a tavern, much like we've seen in previous games, coming before this. I doubt you'll be able to make a custom party from scratch in single player because you're only creating that one character and then you have to go through the game and find a place to hire the hirelings. But I know in multiplayer, they did mention that you were going to be able to completely create a whole party from scratch. And if you wanted to, you could run, everyone can be a barbarian, everyone can be a necromancer, everyone can be a sorcerer. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with multiplayer. Now, I remember one of the tricks we used to do, and I have not tested this in early access yet, so don't hold me to this. But I know one of the things we used to do for fun before Icewind Dale came out, back in the day with Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2, was that if you wanted to run through the game with a character of completely your own making, to get around the limitation of having that one story character in single player mode, you would go create a party from scratch in multiplayer mode and then just play those characters without actually having any of your friends playing the other characters. You would control all of them. I'm pretty sure you can do that here. I can't confirm it as of this recording because I haven't actually tried that, but I know when I was going through, as an example, some of the multiplayer stuff the other day in one of the videos I was creating, I noticed there's a lot of other options for like being able to just drag your friends in on the fly. So you could just create the characters for them and then pull them in. So, or also I noticed that when we quit the multiplayer session the other day, the characters that my friends had rolled were now available for me to play while they weren't online. So it seems to me like you can, create your own party from scratch via the multiplayer. But again, somebody needs to confirm that. But you know, even if you can't for your own sake, you'll be able to do that with your friends. So multiplayer, hirelings, and everything else. And when I forgot to mention earlier too, man, this is on me. Multiclassing was confirmed today. I should have talked about that in the classes section, but I just completely spaced it until just now. Um, so they confirmed. No, we did talk about multiclassing. Man, I need to stay to my notes, guys. I've been up since like 3:30 in the morning, and I've been sitting here recording videos all day, and it's 3:30 in the afternoon right now. So it's been 12 hours of nonstop Baldur's Gate 3, and my mind is all over the place. Backgrounds, custom origin characters, so on and so forth. The Dark Urge thing didn't really do anything for me. Like, I don't ever care to play an evil character, but it provided the way they described it during the live stream was kind of different than the way it shows up written here. It says here it's kind of like an avatar only origin, um, because it of the way, but I don't agree with that based on the gameplay that I saw, because it wasn't just an avatar only. It was definitely like a creepy um, background that had some story behind it. So I don't understand why they said during the live stream avatar only. That part confused me. Anyway, the Dark Urge thing, I think it's cool for the people who want to go through and have an evil playthrough, like beyond like Shadowheart and stuff. Like they showed during this scene, like the guy was having some pretty dark urges to the point where he he did something that was crazy, which I'm gonna try to find the video snippet here of the thing that I want to show you, because it blew my mind that they did this. So here they've got this. I could probably play this clip. They've got this dark urge character here, and they were having him look at a corpse and revel in it and revel in the juiciness of everything. It says that there's something unknown and unspeakable deep within your heart. Now, what was really cool was when they turned around and showed the teleporter here, because this previously Gale would just step out and suddenly appear in front of your party, but that's no longer the case. It now has this swirling thing that you need to interact with, and they have their Dark Urge character here interacting with the portal. And as you interact with the portal, I'm going to wait for this to happen. I think it happened pretty quick on the live stream. They make their choice, they touch it, and after they touch it, what happens? Zap of energy, and then, oh my goodness, there's a hand reaching out, and Gale says, "Hand, anyone?" And then you have all of these options that pop up in the conversation wheel. And this is where um, this he said fantasize. I think that they choose the dark option here, and it blew my mind because it's like I didn't realize that you could go full on like this, because I've never played evil characters. I don't play evil, so it was pretty wild for them to choose the fantasize about hacking the hand off. Because here in a second, if they don't do it, I'm gonna fast forward. Um, to where they actually, essentially, what he does is he hacks Gale's hand off, and it's pretty brutal. I think this is where he does it, yeah. And Gale starts yelling like. It says this branch of flesh is begging to be pruned, and its sap supped from, is what the narrator says. And Gale starts screaming, "By Meister's Island, Mister's Island, stop, seize you, ah!" And then the camera pans back, and we have this hand on the ground, because apparently in his frenzy he went ahead and hacked that hand off, which means Gale will not be joining your party. So really cool stuff in terms of what you can do with the evilness of things. But this does bring something to my attention, because they mentioned something else in here, and this is going to go back to, I'm just going to back up here really quick to where we see his hand sticking out. All right, so we see Gale's hand sticking out like that, right? So this is new from what we've seen in early access. They also said in the panel from hell that they went back and redid almost all of Will's story, dialogue, and voiceover, because they said they had a story that they had used throughout early access, and they decided that they weren't really happy with the way it was, that they wanted to make it better. So they then they rewrote all the dialogue, re-recorded all the dialogue, redid all of the cutscenes with Will's character. I mean, it's a lot of work to redo a character that deep into the development process, but they really are trying hard to make sure that this game is the best version that it can possibly be before it goes to the public. So, um, very, very interesting on that front. So they didn't mention any of the other characters having had rehauls, but one of the things I think the introduction of Karlak, which we've seen her in. I'm trying to find. They do a playthrough with her at some point. I'm trying to find where they have her shown. Yeah, there's a cutscene here with her character. Commercial time, everyone. Huge shout out to the Guild Champions, who are our highest tiered membership here on YouTube. We've got Bubbleonia, Ancient Entity, Craziest Relative, Remy D. Thanks so much for your support here on the channel. And of course, to all of our members who help keep me full time here on YouTube. Thanks so much for your support, for being here, for checking in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, super chat any live streams or premieres you see, super thanks any video uploads you see. Don't forget YouTube Shorts in that category as well. And hopefully, we'll see you in the next live stream. Don't forget the Discord. Links are down below. Let's get back to the video. They had to get rid of the dialogue. There she is. So this character right here, hang on, go back. There we go, right there. This character, Karlak. So previously, I had only come across her once in early access, and there was this thing where she was trying to escape with the no spoiler, it was a group of people nearby who were trying to hunt her down, and her backstory is really complex and complicated, and I wasn't sure what I knew about her, but then they announced that she was going to be an actual companion, which I suspected, but they never had confirmed that, and that you can't have her as a companion in early access. So they confirmed her and the Dark Urge as the two new companions. Her dialogue and everything about her looks super fun, kind of amped up, charismatic. She's got tons of energy. And here's the funny thing. I originally thought that my first playthrough, I was like, I'm gonna romance Shadowheart. Like, I really want to break that, tough exterior and get past the worship of Shar and see if I can't, I just think that that would be a fun romance. However, I know myself, and if I was playing my rogue character like I normally do for the first playthrough, and I'm not this time because I'm doing a druid on my first playthrough, my rogue would 100% be taking the romance option with Karlak's character. She sounds amazing. Her voice actress is amazing. I've loved everything I've seen about this character, even though I've only seen snippets. And now I'm like torn, like which character am I going to go through? I'm pretty sure for the first run through, I am going to go with the Shadowheart option because it makes more sense for my druid. But when I get around to my next playthrough, which is going to be a sorcerer, the sorcerer is probably going to be hooking up with Karlak. Speaking of hooking up, they did a whole bunch of romance stuff in this one, and I don't want to, give anything away, but they showed some freaky deaky stuff here with Asterion and Halsin during the premiere. And they gave people a warning too. They were like, "This is going to be, potentially offensive to some people." So, but we want to show you the vast array of options available should you choose to pursue a romantic relationship. And there are lots of ways to pursue romantic relationships. We are not bound by the confines of planet Earth. Think fantasy realms here. We're in the Forgotten Realms. So they did a beautiful job with what I saw. There was even some things that were shown that I was very shocked that they showed on stream, like Kibbles and Bits stuff that I was like, oh wow, I didn't know we were tuning into Kibbles and Bits today. So that bear scene was quite something else. So on the romances and relationships front, they did talk about, the complexity of the relationships, literally hundreds, if not thousands of permutations in dialogue chains, cutscenes, all the mocap they did, all the dialogue they did, the voiceovers and everything else, and how all of the relationships are super complex and are based on a ton of factors like what are you doing, how are you reacting to them, what are your actions in the game, are you a good guy, a bad guy, do they agree, do they disagree? Are you helping them when they need help? Are you ignoring them when they ask for help? Like, there's all these things that factor into whether or not the characters stick with you and develop a relationship with you. And it says that they can and will leave your party if you do something that's completely against what they're viewing as important to them. Now, he also talked, well, all of them talked about just the diversity. You've got, I think there's 6 origin characters that you can. I don't know about the Dark Urge, because I think that's only a playable one. I don't think you can get the Dark Urge to join. Oh, maybe that's what they meant when they said avatar only. It just dawned on me that when they said that during the live stream and they said avatar only, that's probably what they were referring to, is that the Dark Urge is only playable by the player character and is not available as a party member. It makes sense, but the way they worded it was wonky. Avatar only. I was thinking like the avatar itself, not me being the avatar controlling the character. So that maybe that's what they meant. It probably is what they meant because I don't think the Dark Urge is a playable character. It's an NPC that can join your party is what I'm getting at. It's only a playable character for you. But with the other ones, they all have romance options. So you've got 6, 7, 8, 9, I believe, or 10. 10 is the total because you have the 6 origin characters that you can come with you. Plus, there's Halsin, Minsk, Jahira, and Minthera, I think is her name, or Minertha. I forget. Is it Minthera or Minertha? The Drow chick that can join you. There's four. Those 4 people can potentially join your party, giving you 10 different companions that you will be able to have relationships and romances with, which may or may not culminate in hoochie coochie stuff that we can't show on stream. Which begs the question is, are they going for a PG-13 rating here, or are they going for an R rating? I'm assuming PG-13, but I haven't heard them speak to that yet. So I don't know what that, like, how graphic are we getting? Um, are we getting Dragon Age Origin type of hoochie coochie, or are we getting Cyberpunk 2077 type hoochie coochie? Because both of those are dramatically different because it goes from PG-13 to R rated very quickly between those 2 games. But we did get a lot. There's a lot of talk today about the romance options and the importance of the relationships with your party members, and you know especially if you want to get to the end and see how those relationships pan out over the course of the game and at the end of the game as well. So it was very cool on that front. They then did a bit of a live Ask Me Anything, which I felt the questions were somewhat, they were okay, but they were having some technical difficulties, and so they did a live Q&A. Um, eh, you know, I didn't really find anything there that was that juicy. But what they did next during the runaround of the lower city in Baldur's Gate was pretty cool because they did the scene we saw earlier with Karlach from that screenshot. But they actually showed too this thing. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Um, I don't have timestamps for any of this stuff, everybody. Somewhere in here, it's right here. There is this. It's called the Baldur's Mouth. It's a gazette. It's a newspaper, right? So they talked about how everything on this newspaper is influenced by the actions the characters have taken across the city. So it said reports of ships sailing by night along the beaches of Worm's Crossing. The gate must hold. Absolutists gather outside our great city. Visit the uncanny Feywild Circus. Minor quakes continue to rattle nerves. Feywild Circus comes to town with famous Dribbles the Clown. Lord Gartash becomes first ever Archduke. So there's all this stuff, and they said that you can actually influence with your actions, and also it says you can break into the newspaper office and make this say whatever you want it to say. And they talk about how the city, the NPCs, will often have dialogue related to whatever's in the most recent gazette. So they will be reacting to the events Like if the characters have done some things and the events start to change in one section of the city, the NPCs will start to talk about those things and those changes, and it will also show up in the Gazette. So this was kind of an interesting little, another role play component added to the game, which I thought was rather cool. And Baldur's Gate looks huge as a city, and from what I understand, like the whole third act takes place here, and they because they've talked about it being like the end of the game when you get here, and everything's about do you save the city or do you take it over. Like I think the whole third act, or at least parts of the third act, takes place here. Um, then during the multiplayer section, I think the things that most interested me during the multiplayer, I'm gonna get to it real quick if I can find it. I swear I was just there. Um, Here it is right here. Um, they debuted the split screen, co-op, and controller gameplay. So if I can play this video, I think he might even see. You can see on the right, he's moving his character around and he's doing everything with a controller, which is huge, 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 huge news for me because I have really bad. I don't want to get into it. I've talked about it before in other videos. I have really bad tendonitis. I'm an older guy, getting older, and I'm gonna have problems when I'm truly older. But I like to use a controller as often as possible because the WASD thing just doesn't work for me anymore for long periods of time. I much prefer a controller because my thumbs work great. It's the other fingers I have problems with sometimes for long sessions. So being able to see the controller support was really, really cool. Cool. Also, this part of the video that they're showing right here was they were debuting tactician mode, which is like their hard mode. And they made a very, very important distinction between like easy mode, explorer mode, normal mode. I think they called it explorer mode, balance mode, and tactician mode, which is the explorer mode is for story. I'm gonna play it on explorer mode. For my first playthrough of my druid, absolutely playing it on explorer mode. My second playthrough, I will absolutely play it on balanced mode. My multiplayer playthrough that I'm playing, that will be on normal balanced mode. I personally will probably never, ever, ever play Tactician mode ever. Tactician mode is everything's cranked up to 11. Bosses have more hit points, more everything, but they also have heightened AI. They'll go for your squishies first. They'll try to break your concentration. They also have additional abilities. I think they said there's over 300 combat encounters in the game, and every single one of them was fine tuned for. Every single one of those encounters was fine tuned for the tactician mode and had additional mechanics added to it. Like the fight that they showed here, all of the mobs had fire arrows instead of regular arrows. And so there's this heightened level of ability, and the way they described it was you need to know you need to intimately know 5th edition rules and mechanics before you attempt to do hardcore mode, tactician mode. Because if you don't take advantage of cover and you don't use your resists and buff up with potions and all these other things, you're just gonna get face stomped. And they got face stomped in the video. It was great watching them get raffle stomped um, by this encounter in tactician mode because it was quite brutal. And the fight is already in this town is already quite challenging. So it was cool to see multiplayer in action with a co-op going on and controller support because that was a big thing for me is am I getting a controller on the PC? And I figured we would given the past work that they've done with Divinity Original Sin and so on and so forth. They also did a showcase of the collector's edition, which was really cool. And they did, I'm going to see if I can find it here real quick. I don't want to spoil anything. They showed Jaheira in real time. And she does this crazy spell thing. I want to see if I can find it. Um, yeah, there we go. That's the image I wanted behind me. So Jaheira obviously being one of the classic characters along with Minsk that we're getting from the first game. Getting to see her. This was a bit of a spoiler part of the. This was the after party, so to speak, where they did a playthrough of this session leading up to the Moonrise Temple. I think is what it's called. And they were showing it from both the Harper's perspective as well as the other perspective, like if you choose to go the bad guy route. So we got both sides of the coin being shown to us to show us that there are multiple ways to get there, and there's more ways beyond this, but these were just the two they were showing us. Um, and this was like after they had already talked to us about the importance of the story and all the permutations. I think Sven said, like, he's like, we're not very good at selling our game. We're much better at showing you the things that we want to showcase our game. And so that's what they did. It was a big show and tell where they went through and they just did a deep dive with everybody and said, this is what we've got. These are all the permutations, thousands of lines of dialogue and all these different ways to do things. This was really cool. It was cool seeing Jahira and the Harpers and everything else, and I can't wait to see this. But part of what I thought was very impressive about the story and cinematic section of the video was them talking about how they started from scratch and they had two key guys who built their cinematics pipeline from scratch. So they built their own mocap studio, and they just literally built a division of the company from scratch and have created, since the start of this 6 years ago, 170, however many hours it is of cinematic footage that is in the game. Have seen the number. It's like 174, 176, some ridiculously high number that's like 3 times the amount of runtime of Game of Thrones, I think is what they've said. It is a lot of cutscenes. And those cutscenes are integral to the story, but you're not ever going to see those in one playthrough. It's broken up into all of the various permutations across the game because most of these cutscenes are at most a couple minutes long. Um, but they did confirm all these really cool facts about their cinematics team and what went into making it and the complexities behind, it's not just about the written word, and it's about then going and doing the rough in and then doing your rough NPCs, adding on the skins for the avatars after that, getting all the tweaks in for the mocap, and then making sure that the dialogue is matching with the mocap, and then doing lighting and VFX. And they even talked about the importance of lighting in cutscenes to change the mood of the scene. So if someone's getting angry, it might get darker. If they're happier, it might get lighter. So there's so much work that has gone into making these cinematics look really, really cool. And this one is no exception. I think it's a really cool scene the way she just walks up and casts this spell, and she's like, "Yeah, you're not going anywhere, buddy," and ensnares the feet of your character. Like, just really cool stuff going on here, and I think it's just the perfect example of how hard they've been working at making this the best game possible. So that's it, everyone. That's my deep dive into the showcase for the release version of the Panel from Hell. So they're not doing another Panel from Hell from here on out. It's just us waiting until launch. Now, of course, they might do some more news and, of course, some more press. I will cover that as it becomes available. And, of course, I will continue to publish some videos around the Panel from Hell over the weekend. So stay tuned for all of that. Maybe even into the early parts of next week. But beyond that, we've got all the class guides. We're continuing to stream throughout early access. We've got multiplayer sessions, single player sessions, doing all sorts of BG stuff. We're also doing more Starfield videos, a bunch of stuff related to like Star Trek, Star Wars, the shows, the games, and everything else in between. So make sure to check out the Discord, check out all the other playlists. Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you never miss an update or any of the live streams. And hopefully, we'll see you in all the places where we do things as a community. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. Until next time, stay safe, happy gaming.